Like a waterfall in slow motion.
Hello and welcome to the practice problems video on the section on other trig functions. Okay, so here's problem number 1. It asks if theta is equal to 5 pi over 6, find exact values for secant, theta, cosecant, tangent, and cotangent. Okay, so first of all, let's find where 5 pi over 6 is. So if we draw our quadrants, and here's a circle, okay? So 5 pi over 6, let's count our pi over 6's. So 1 pi over 6, 2, 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6, 5 pi over 6 is here. So 5 pi over 6. So we have a triangle that looks like this, okay? Kind of like that. Alrighty, so here's, so technically this is theta, but we can also consider this to be theta as well. That's like our reference angle, okay? So this is 5 pi over 6, and this is like a 1 here, okay? And then we have that up and down, this is shorter than we are in the x direction, right? So this is going to be our 1/2, and this is going to be our radical 3 over 2. And the important thing to realize here is that x should be negative, right? So we actually have a negative sign in front here. That negative sign doesn't mean our distance is negative, it just means that's what the x-coordinate is. Our x-coordinate is negative, okay? So what we're going to do now is find secant of theta. So secant of 5 pi over 6 in this case. So secant of 5 pi over 6 should be equal to 1 over cosine of 5 pi over 6, okay? And 1 over cosine, so cosine 5 pi over 6, that's going to be our x value. So secant is going to be equal to 1 over whatever our x value is, and that's this negative radical 3 over 2. So that's going to give us negative 2 over radical 3, which we can rationalize, right? So I'll do that, and I'll just finish it off here. So secant of 5 pi over 6 is going to be equal to negative 2 radical 3 over a 3. Okay, so that's secant. Now we're going to do cosecant. So cosecant, that one's related to sine because it's the reciprocal, right? Or the inverse of sine. No, not the inverse. The reciprocal of sine. So that'll be equal to 1 over sine of 5 pi over 6. This one's going to be a little easier because now all we have to do is divide by a positive 1/2. And that's going to give us a 2. So that's nice. Let's see, what else do we need? Tangent. Okay, so tangent of 5 pi over 6 is equal to sine of that angle, okay, over cosine of that angle. Alrighty, so our sine we already know is 1/2, okay, and our cosine is going to be negative radical 3 over 2, okay. So those kind of cancel out, and when we flip it, we just get 1/2 times negative 2 over radical 3. That's equal to negative 1 over radical 3, okay. And if you were to rationalize that, it would be negative radical 3 over 3, okay. And finally, our cotangent of 5 pi over 6, that's simply the opposite, or the reciprocal of tangent, okay? So we just flip whatever we got for tangent, and we can take this one, because this is pretty easy. So if we flip that, we just get negative radical 3 there, okay? So here it is. So that's cotangent of 5 pi over 6. This is tangent of 5 pi over 6. This guy's cosecant of 5 pi over 6. And this one here is secant of 5 pi over 6. Alrighty, so number 2 asks us to kind of do the same thing, except for with a different angle and different information, right? So now we're given tangent theta, okay? So this is going to be, and our theta is in between 0 and pi over 2, which means we're in the first quadrant. So I'm actually going to blow that up first here. So let's say we have something like this. Okay, so here's the first quadrant, right? Both x and y are positive. And we have tangent of theta is equal to 12 over 5. Okay, so that's kind of like saying y over x, right? Because that's what tangent tells us. So here's our angle theta, right? And let me say, okay, so let's say our triangle's like this, okay? And tangent is y over x. So tangent of theta would be 12 over 5, okay? And from the Pythagorean theorem, we know that this is a Pythagorean triple, meaning that 5 squared plus 12 squared is going to be something else squared in a whole number, and that whole number is a 13, okay? So now it'll be pretty easy to find sine, cosine, and all the rest. So now our sine of theta, and I'll just call it theta, because we don't really know what the angle is exactly. So sine of theta is going to be y over r. I'll just call this r. So y over r is equal to 12 over 13. How about cosine? Cosine is equal to adjacent, or x over r. So that would be 5 over 13. Secant is just going to be the flip of that. So secant theta is equal to 13 over 5. That's pretty easy. And all of these, just a side note, all of these are going to be positive because both sine and cosine are positive. Both our x and y are positive when we're in the first quadrant. Okay? So anyways, cosecant is the flip or the reciprocal of sine. So we're just going to flip that fraction there. What else do we need? And cotangent. So we already know we're given that tangent theta is equal to 12 over 5. So cotangent is just the flip of that. So that would be 5 over 12.